To influence your clients or your colleagues, you must understand the psychology of persuasion. In his book, The Influence, the Psychology of Persuasion, Dr. Robert Ciadini describes and shares 6 principles that you can apply to increase your ability to influence and persuade your clients, colleagues, whoever, to accept and adopt your ideas. And in this short video, I'll share with you how you can take those 6 principles and apply them to your very next presentation. The first principle is the principle of reciprocation. So what's this? Basically, to get something, you've got to give first. In other words, givers get. However you want to describe it, it's all about sharing your ideas and sharing great value first. And the way that you can use this in your very next presentation is to make sure that when you're pitching your ideas to clients, whether you're sharing your ideas with your colleagues, make sure that you are sharing plenty of value first. In other words, make sure that the opportunities, ideas that you're sharing with your room, with your audience, is practical. It's actionable. It's something that they could take away and do without you. If you can share that level of value, that level of content, they're going to want to reciprocate. In other words, they're going to want to take up your ideas and your offer because they know that you are someone that is offering up value and demonstrating it. So in other words, apply the law of reciprocation and share great material first before you ask for something in return. Principle number 2 is social proof. Now, social proof is a nice, easy one to apply. It's basically a case of looking around the world and looking around to see what your competitors, your colleagues, other industries are doing, and using that as a mechanism to say, well, if they're doing it, we should do it too. People like to follow and they take reassurance from the fact that if other people are doing a particular idea, they're taking up a particular challenge, that they should probably be doing it too. Now, you can use this to your advantage in your presentations. When you're pitching ideas, you want to persuade and influence the thinking of your audience by simply sharing testimonials or case studies that show other people, whether it's competitors or colleagues, taking the particular idea, action, whatever it is you're proposing. If you can find that mechanism to show that other people are doing it, your chances of influencing your audience and persuading them to adopt your ideas and your way of thinking are greatly increased. So principle number 2 is social proof. Find ways to show that other people are doing the ideas that you want your audience to follow. The third principle Dr. Robert Ciadini talks about in the psychology of persuasion is the principle of commitment and consistency. This is about recognizing the fact that people like to honor their commitments. In other words, if they say they are going to do something, the majority of occasions and the majority of times, they want to follow through on those commitments. Now, the way that you can apply this in your presentation as you're pitching your ideas is to find lots of little ways that you can get your audiences and audience members to commit. So in other words, find small yeses. Find little things that they can say yes to, little small commitments that they can make, whether it's just by simple questions that you ask, simple ideas that you get them to nod in agreement with, that ultimately build up to your bigger idea, that bigger thing that you want to persuade or influence them to do. So through your presentation, to get commitment and consistency, find lots of little yeses, lots of little ways that they can either verbally acknowledge out loud yes, even mentally just acknowledge yes, that that's the way they think that they should be heading, and that ultimately add up to that big commitment that you want them to make, that big change. That is how you're going to help persuade them. So find lots of little yeses that you can get your audience to commit to during the course of your presentation. The fourth principle is the principle of liking. If your audience and the people that you're trying to influence like you, they are much more likely to accept your ideas. If they don't like you, the chances of them following the course of action that you're proposing, changing their direction or changing their thoughts, is greatly reduced. So you've got to invest the time, energy and effort to make sure that you are liked by the people you're trying to persuade. Now, applying this to your presentation, to your pitch, means that you need to spend time and effort building rapport with your audience. And there's 2 easy ways that you can do this. Firstly, Before your presentation starts, make sure you invest the time to be shaking hands, meeting and greeting audience members as they arrive in the room. That's your first level of building that rapport factor, building that likability. The second aspect is to share your background, share your experience. In other words, include an About Me section in your presentation. By simply sharing that little bit of background story, showing your relatability, showing a little bit about who you are, you add and build upon that likability factor. You establish a depth to your rapport that if you don't have, you're not going to build a likability factor. So, through the course of activities prior to your presentation starting and the early part of your presentation, you need to focus on building a rapport to build that likability factor. Remember, people will not be persuaded by people they do not trust. The fifth principle that Dr. Robert Ciadini talks about in his book, Influence, the Psychology of Persuasion, is around authority. People gravitate and follow the lead of experts. So you've got to have a body of work, a credibility factor with the people that you're trying to persuade. Now, applying this to your presentation, if we go from what we discussed in principle number 4 about likability, sharing an about you, sharing a little bit about your background and your story, we can enhance and develop that further to include credibility factors. In other words, as you share a little bit about your background and your story to build rapport, you can also share your authority. Share credibility enhancing elements. So in other words, talk about the works that you've done. Maybe talk about the papers and experiences you've had. All of that comes together to build your authority. So utilize that About Me, that rapport building section to really enhance not only your likability, but your authority. Because people will naturally follow the lead of experts. If you can demonstrate you're an expert, demonstrate that you're likable, they will then want to follow your ideas and be persuaded and be influenced by you. The final principle is the principle of scarcity. In other words, the less there is of something, the more your target market, your clients, your colleagues are likely to want whatever it is you're offering. So you have to find a way to create a natural scarcity and a natural urgency. This has to be done authentically and done genuinely, but there are ways and means that you can make any object scarce and more desirable. Now, through the course of your presentation, this is how you can show a level of urgency and add scarcity, is by sharing such stories as your competitors are already doing whatever it is you're proposing. Your other teams are already following the lead in terms of what you're offering to try and influence the thinking of. If you can share a way to create a level of natural and authentic scarcity and create an urgency, people are more likely to be persuaded to act now, to take up your ideas today rather than leaving it to some point in the future. So it could be as simple as saying, well, if we undertake this particular proposal today, we can save money with these 3 upcoming projects. There is a way that you can create a natural level of scarcity in the corporate environment. If you're offering a product or service during your presentation, if you're trying to sell your product, sell your service, there are other mechanisms that you can use. Again, you can use the story or the fact that competitors are already doing and taking up your product or service offering to take an advantage and a leap in the market. It could be as simple as that there is an end of month offer that expires in 10 days time, in 7 days time, whatever. It has to be authentic, it has to be genuine. But when you create an authentic scarcity, your audience is much more likely to be persuaded and influenced to act now. So we have covered 6 principles of persuasion, 6 mechanisms that you can use to make your next presentation more persuasive. Your ability to influence an audience will be greatly increased if you follow the principles that Dr. Robert Ciadini has spoken about and discussed in his book, Influence, the Psychology of Persuasion. And in this short video, we've shown and talked about how you can take those principles and apply them to your very next presentation to make it more influential and more persuasive. If you want help developing an influential and persuasive presentation, you want help becoming the trusted leader in your field, the authority, then go check out the Public Speaking Skills Academy. I have a range of communication and sales authority positioning programs that will help you improve your ability to communicate and help you become the authority in your field. Check them out at the Academy.com.